There are two versions of reality 11 days after the presidential election. We know from Donald Trump's tweets this morning that he knows that he's lost. He's not delusional, he's just refusing to concede. Instead, he's put his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, on the television this morning to say that the election was rigged. At the same time, Ron Klain, who is Joe Biden's new chief of staff, has appeared on television to say that Joe Biden is not a president or not, depending on what Donald Trump tweets, and that it's time to get on with a transition to a new administration. And the longer this standoff takes to resolve, the longer it takes for America to move on. Near the White House last night, there were clashes between pro- and anti-Trump protesters. The violence didn't last long, but one man was treated for stab wounds, and it was further evidence of bitter division over last week's election result. This morning, the president tweeted that he, that's Joe Biden, won because the election was rigged. Later, he clarified that he was conceding nothing. He only won in the eyes of the fake news media, Mr. Trump wrote. I concede nothing. We have a long way to go. This was a rigged election. Despite there being no evidence it was rigged, a crowd of perhaps tens of thousands marched through Washington yesterday. Though polling suggests most Republicans believe Joe Biden did win, a parallel universe has been fed alternative facts in support of the president's claims. Federal officials are also lying, apparently to appease Mr. Trump, with the number of people here far below over 1 million, which the White House spokeswoman claimed. Will you ever accept Joe Biden as your president?
Absolutely not.
Well, never?
Never. Absolutely not.
The fact that he won 5 million votes more than Donald Trump did.
I think that's a fallacy.
Where do you get your news from?
Our news, not from you all, not from mainstream media, citizen news networks.
I've never heard of that. What's that?
Citizens News Network. People like me, people like common people. We're the news. We report the news.
The national anthem was led by a group called the Deplorables Choir, and there were very few face masks, despite 750,000 Americans testing positive for COVID this last week. Nobody likes a sore loser, goes the saying, but Donald Trump is still loved by many who simply don't believe he lost.
Jonathan, when do you think President Trump will bow to the inevitable?
Well, I think it's important to say that people in that report there are Donald Trump's customer base for whatever he does next, whether that's in business or in politics. So he needs them to be as angry as possible for as long as possible, because he's going to need them in the future. He could concede on December the 14th, when the Electoral College formally cast their votes. He could concede on January the 6th, when Congress formally counts the votes. It very much depends on the Republican leadership and whether it finds its collective spine to tell him that the game is up. So far, it hasn't done that. Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State a few days ago, talked about a fluid transition to a second Trump term. And perhaps it's remarkable that the violence we saw last night was not more severe, given how polarized this country still remains.